Hi, everyone. You're with the WBCA staff here today talking about mindfulness and art and astrology and what we're thinking about these days as we're dealing with the coronavirus isolation. My name is Alex Lagares. I'm the Development and Marketing Director, and I'm here with Lindsey and Karen, who I will let introduce themselves now. Lindsey, you want to go first?
Sure. I'm Lindsey Sherald. I am a program assistant, and you might have seen me around WBCA before, but I have all of these secret interests in mindfulness, or rather not so secret because I've shared them all with my friends here at work, in mindfulness, spirituality, and that's really something that's been grounding me through this whole process of social isolation, and I'm here to share a little bit about what that has looked like for me and what it could look like for you.
Hi, I'm Karen. I am the office assistant and receptionist on nights and weekends at WBCA. I just started in February at the center, and it's been amazing so far. I also have a semi-secret obsession, interest in mindfulness things, astrology. I also do tarot regularly as well. And as soon as I find somebody who's willing to talk about that stuff with me and not be weirded out, I'm so excited. So I'm really happy we're having this conversation today.
Cool. Yeah, it's a really fun theme to have together. Lindsey, just after I started, and Karen and I both are still, I guess we're all still pretty new to the center, but I really appreciated what you did to take all the staff through and give us a little bit more information about ourselves.
I had started talking to Susie a little bit about it because we did this exercise, Strength Finder, which is like somewhat psychological, maybe scientific, and I was like, what if I took everyone's cosmic strengths and laid them out for them? And I know some folks might have a little bit of knowledge or interest about astrology, but I thought I would kind of just share like a positive trait or an interesting propensity or like, disposition that people might have according to the stars and see if it resonated with them, because I think it's really fun to understand yourself through like a new way of thinking.
Where did you turn for answers when it came time to looking at the staff?
What do you mean?
Well, how did you come up with that or connect us with that information?
Oh, yeah. Well, so I asked everyone to give me their sign, and I have a little bit of intuitive knowledge about those things, but I also use this website, Cafe Astrology, that can lay everything out for you if you feel like looking into your star chart a little bit and pondering on some of these mysteries while you're spending time by yourself at your house.
So how did you kind of get started down this path, and what has helped you, kind of keep connected or come back for more?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I've always had an interest in ways of thinking that are not in the norm. So I've always been drawn to these sorts of like occult types of things. But I don't know, I really started I don't know, when I was 23, I was going through some difficult experiences, and I was like, how can I create a more solid foundation for myself? And I think that had to do with kind of looking at myself maybe through a different lens. So then I started taking notes on my chart and being like, oh, I feel like I really resonate with some of these things, and they give me a ground to stand on, or a foundation through which to understand myself that maybe I didn't have before. And so I think it's also kind of fun to look at other people through that lens and connect to a higher reason for why we are the way we are.
Yeah, I had a really similar kind of start to getting into astrology and also tarot, where I was going through a tough kind of time called grad school a few years ago. And yeah, had moved away from the city I'd become, an adult in. I went to college in Boston and was working in publishing there, and sort of left the career there and left everything to move to Iowa to study writing. And yeah, it was an amazing experience, and it was exactly what I needed to do, but it definitely, like, all my foundations kind of crumbled at that time. And yeah, I think I'd had a lifelong interest in, like you say, these sort of new age or occult things, but it was really about, I guess, 5 years ago that I really started studying them more seriously and finding so much like comfort and groundedness, and yeah, like I had more access to understanding myself thanks to that. So I started, I would take these courses that this great astrologer, Chani Nicholas. Do you know Chani Nicholas, Lindsey?
Yeah, I've heard her before.
Yeah, she does these really affordable online astrology classes that have themes, and they're really thorough and wonderful. And I started taking those and buying some astrology books, and it just like kind of exploded in my mind, and has been a wonderful resource and a great way to connect with other people too. Because I mean, I think even if you're a little wary about this stuff, most people kind of love hearing about their birth chart. Yeah. So it's a great way to connect with people.
And I think there's such a nice thing about being able to have a more playful relationship with spirituality and things like that than what is perhaps the norm. So anything that can infuse, more fun into that is great.
Yeah.
Well, I love hearing that, like more fun comes out of this. That's amazing. A foundation for understanding yourself, your relationship with the world and the universe. It seems to be a theme among people who enjoy exploring mindfulness. Has there been a moment, or can you think back to a specific instance when that like you said, Karen, your mind kind of blew open?
That's really interesting. That's a great question. I think I don't know, I remember one of the early experiences I had, I was watching the lesson videos from a course I bought from Chani Nicholas's site on the role that your Mars plays in your chart. So if you look at your birth chart where Mars is, in your birth chart, the day you were born. And it was talking about how Mars is the planet of like your energy, your like warrior spirit, your desire to fight for things, the way you handle conflict, like that planet kind of handles those aspects of your life. And I remember that course being so amazing because I'm a very conflict avoidant person and I like really struggle with conflict and can really struggle to stand up for myself. And taking that course about that planet, like just zooming in on that planet in my chart and learning about it, I remember that being like, oh my God, I have so much more, I've done so much more reflecting on that aspect of myself thanks to that course. And I also feel like I have so many more tools for how to work with that in a positive way. So I remember that being one experience that was like so specific and helpful for me, and like really was a great thing to learn about myself.
Cool. Lindsey, how about you?
Well, I guess, it's hard to pinpoint like a specific moment because like I say, I've always been interested in these things, and just they kind of like snowball into like becoming more and more relevant and becoming more and more important to me and like other people that I meet as well. But I do remember, like I say, going through a hard time. I had a really like beautiful moment where I like really connected to like I don't know how to like the life-giving force that exists in the universe, and I was like, I need to like value that more than I had previously, and this is my way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on the note of connecting with that life-giving force of the universe, which I think is something we all are really craving right now. Lindsey, have there been like, where are you turning these days?
Well, I like recently have been more like with the structure like that having a desk job affords me. I've been focused more and more on movement lately. And I know definitely that's something that has been really helpful in this time, like every day I'm trying to go out and get a walk and enjoy the things that I love about spring that I always do, and feeling those lovely things about being outside and like expanding. And I have also been doing yoga like every morning and really like concentrating on those like messages of like being present and focusing on your breath, because I think that they really do, like, although they're easier said than done, when you put them into practice, they really can help manage any kind of uneasiness that might be coming up right now. And I found it like tremendously important to put those into work.
Are you going through like a guided yoga or?
Yeah, I follow this woman, Yoga with Adrienne on YouTube, and she's super accessible. I feel like her practice is really authentic. You can do anything from like a 10-minute to an hour-long practice. It's really whatever you want it to be, and each one of her videos has like a little intention. So for example, the other day I had a really lovely practice doing her yoga for anger. And it was really great.
Yoga for anger, cool.
Yep.
Karen, how about you?
Those I have to check out that yoga practice you were saying, Lindsey. Everyone should, if you feel like it, maybe you could have a day where you study your Mars and then you do your yoga for anger.
Yeah.
That could be like a great combo day. But yeah, I've also really been comforted by movement also. The days where I get up and stretch, I feel so much more at ease with everything. So stretching. I don't typically do sort of guided yoga stuff. I've actually felt a lot better if I've done a little bit of yoga, like classes at home, and I know some basic poses. And something that's really helped me is putting on like music. Bjork is a great one for me these days, and just doing poses that feel nice, and kind of listening to the music and trying to do those stretches has made me feel way more present, and helped me focus on breathing and being present in my body, because it's so easy for all the energy to just come up in my head. So movement's been a huge help for me as well. And then something a little more playful, I actually just got the book by Channing Nicholas, You Were Born for This, which helps you learn the basics of your birth chart. And I bought it for 2 of my best friends also. And so my hope is over the next couple of weeks, we'll be screenshotting parts of it and like texting each other and using this as a way to like get closer and be reading the same book and learn about ourselves more. So looking at the mindfulness or sort of new age practices that have helped me and trying to share them with people who I know are also interested has also helped me feel really connected to people. So yeah. Also, just the title is calming. You were born for this. Like during these like really anxiety-inducing times, seeing this title, I'm like, okay, like we can do it. So that helps also.
You know, with all this time, we have the opportunity to try new things like this, and to use it as a way not just to help ourselves, but to connect with each other too. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm like very involved in a music community, and I feel like I have a spiritual relationship with that as well, but lots of people have been like playing music over live stream, and like people will be dancing together, or you may be just observing their craft, which I think is really fun. And I am like a novice musician, so I'm not ready to broadcast, but I do have some synthesizers over there that I've been trying to use whenever I'm feeling inspired, or like I have the confidence to try to learn it.
Oh, cool. Now, what platform, I mean, like to share stuff, you just going through like Facebook or what?
Facebook, I think, is where a lot of people are sharing their streams. And then I also use SoundCloud a lot to find music. It's maybe not as mainstream as something like Spotify, but a lot of like independent artists will upload their music to something like SoundCloud.
Cool.
Yeah.
For people looking to, explore and take on stuff like this, do either of you have suggestions for where to turn or what to look for if we're looking to fill our lives with more of these kind of activities?
Well, I've been enjoying the Chani Nicholas so far. Another, if you are interested in learning more about astrology, another one that I really love is Astrology and the Authentic Self by Demetra George. So yeah, if you're kind of looking for ways to sort of direct your buzzing mind onto some astrological study, those are two books that have really been, the Demetra George has been a very good friend to me since I bought it a few years ago. And the new Chani Nicholas book is really lovely also. So yeah, for some astrology texts, those are ones I would recommend.
I'm trying to find I should have come to the table with this already, but I'm trying to figure out this woman who I really love. Her name is Juliana McCarthy, and she wrote a book, The Stars Within You. She's pretty active on social media, but she's a really great astrologer that I think you could also turn to, and is pretty active in terms of like writing a blog and putting up information about the moment. Because I know Chani Nicholas is very popular. I think she's in places like Cosmo and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And her work has a very social justice bent to it, which can help the astrology feel like not just about looking inward, but also looking at the events happening, externally in a more, I don't know, maybe present or focused way as well. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I also have I haven't been journaling as much as I want to, but I thought that I would share a couple journals that I really like that have like small exercises in them. This one is called the Monthly Manifestation Manual, and it's made by this independent artist. Oh God, I can't remember her name at the moment. I'll think of it. But she has a company that's called the School of Life Design. And then she has all these little worksheets that you can like download on her website, and she's compiled them into a book. But they're just like these short little exercises. This one's called Writing Your Life Story. And they're just like ways to kind of like positively orient your thinking about like anything that's gone on in your life or in the day that you might be dealing with. And I think that those are really nice, like opportunities to take ownership for whatever's going on. And I got this moon journal from this shop called The Future in South Minneapolis. I haven't actually started this, but that's something that I really want to use this time to do. And it's like just journaling like with prompts and ideas about whatever might be going on based on the moon cycle and how the moon is aligned with whatever astrological events are going on.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome.
It is so cool to even think this way. I'm coming to this pretty new, but I'm very open to what it has to teach us, and how cool that we can understand ourselves, understand this time, understand kind of broader influences in society. This really opens a lot of doors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think there's some like very popular misconceptions, because astrology is often presented this way, that like astrology like dictates your life and your personality, and we're kind of trapped by the sign we were born in or whatever. But actually, the more I study it, the more it feels like I don't know, more like a conversation that you can have with yourself, or a way to understand patterns in your life and take more ownership of them and be more accountable. And it's actually made me feel more engaged and more accountable to myself, rather than feeling sort of at the whims of, the planet. So I think it's good to mention that as well, that the more you study it, I think the more open your life feels, rather than the more narrow it feels.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I also think, like, for example, like on a similar train of thought, it's like sometimes you might have trouble giving yourself permission to like feel or be whatever it is that you are. And then, like I say, whenever you have this foundation that might explain why you're feeling the way that you're feeling, or why you struggle with this thing, if you can have some kind of like, I think this is like probably pretty psychological, but if you can give yourself some reason for why that is the way it is, you might feel more confident to like, again, own that feeling or thing about yourself, rather than, have it be a mystery.
Yeah, last week I had kind of an experience where I realized that I was like feeling a lot of anxiety and had been taking on a lot of this pressure, working at home, changing routines, risk to, my loved ones and my, people in my life that are encountering this disease. But when I went through just a simple journal exercise of my fears and, did the crumple up, throw it away thing, I noticed every day since my back hasn't been hurting. Like I feel more at peace when I wake up, more motivated to go into work. I think this is an extraordinary time for people, and this is a real tool that we can give people to navigate this and to find meaning. For people looking to be connected to each other, are there like Facebook groups or Twitter accounts or something, or Instagram profiles? Or how do you find yourself connecting to other people through it? Is it kind of through conversations like this?
I listen to like a lot of podcasts where people talk about astrology. I'm trying to think of one that I could tell you, but I also like am very fortunate to like surround myself with other people that are interested in these things, so I never find myself lacking in community with those folks. Admittedly, some of the podcasts I listen to are kind of fringe, so I don't know that I have a recommendation that's like really accessible for other people, but podcasts might be a good way to find something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I listen to it. It's called the Astrology podcast, and that has some great stuff in it. And I also saw today there's a tarot reader that I follow. I actually got a reading from her a few years ago. Her name is Lindsey Mack, and her Instagram handle is Wild Soul Healing, I believe. But if you search Lindsey Mack Instagram, you'd find her. And she just posted a April tarot challenge, and every day in April has a question to consider. And then the idea is you would pull a card for it and then journal about that. I think if you are interested in tarot or, have a deck you might be thinking of using, that challenge would be a great thing to do. I think if you don't have a deck, the questions are great, and even just journaling about them every day. And then you can see in the comments other people, responding to the tarot questions and challenges. So that might be a cool way if you use Instagram to connect with other people. And maybe get some tarot practice in if you've been considering that.
Yeah, if someone was totally new to tarot, I mean, I think we all have a sort of a comic book sketch in our heads about what that's like. Could you talk just a little bit more about what tarot is in the practice?
Sure. So tarot is a deck of 78 cards, each of which has a sort of archetype on them. And essentially, you use the cards. I use them to sort of answer questions and get a little more daily insight into where I'm at emotionally, psychologically, things that I should keep in mind, things that I should be aware of in my life. I use that. So this is my tarot deck. I've been reading tarot since 2015. So I guess like 5 years now. It's a really helpful practice for me. Basically the cards, they have archetypes. There's 4 different suits, wands, pentacles, cups, and swords. You use them to sort of make some interpretations about, for me anyway, emotional, psychological states, and it kind of helps you get grounded and connected with yourself. A great way to get started, if you are interested in that, is it's a book. It's by Rachel Pollack, and it's 78 Days of Wisdom, I think it's called. But that's supposed to be a really great introductory text. I have her other book called Tarot Wisdom, which is fantastic also. So yeah, that's another tool.
Yeah,
I should say that we'll have all of these listed on the website along with this video, so that people can click through and check these out for themselves. Lindsey, do you have anything to add about tarot or anything?
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna maybe tie it back into art, because like tarot, they all have images on them that like are varying level of detail depending on whose deck you're using, and they're often created by artists, like independent artists or, there's really old ones that people use, but, they're kind of like, they're all pieces of artwork, and a lot of tarot readers will, or people who are learning to do or teaching to do tarot will like suggest that you create like an intuitive relationship with what image you're seeing, similar to maybe you would a piece of artwork. And it's similar to maybe like a Rorschach test where you're allowing your subconscious or something you think or feel that might not be obvious to you become more obvious to you by looking at this image.
Yeah, and there's lots of books with various like interpretative instructions, but I totally agree that the more you use them and the more you like form a relationship with the imagery and the artistry of the deck, you start to kind of form your own relationship with the archetypes on the card. And it's a really great, it feels very personal, and it's a really yeah, it's a great tool. Like I feel like my tarot deck is like a roommate. It lives in the house with me and has its own sort of personality. So yeah, I totally agree with
that. That is so cool. Next time we can all actually get together, maybe there's a way to do this over Zoom. We've got a deck here that I got at an Axeman surplus about.
Ooh.
I'd love to break it through and try to develop my own relationship with those cards.
Sounds amazing.
I've got an excuse. So before we go today, I just, if there's any other questions or insight that you'd like to offer to our viewing audience here, now is the time.
I mean, I really have been feeling like there is, like, as tumultuous as this time is, I think that there is a lot of good to be found wherever you can. And so I've been really focusing on that as much as possible, because I can't think of how many times I've wanted to have more room and energy in my life to dedicate to both my creative and my spiritual practices. And now I have that luxury. And so I'm just, taking advantage of what I can about this, and also doing some soul searching wherever I'm finding an opportunity for that, be that, through joy or discomfort. And I would encourage anybody else to take the same lens.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think the only thing I would add is that I think it's really important that whatever tools you practice make you feel like the answers you're receiving, you may be getting help from things like a tarot deck or a birth chart, but the answers are coming from within you. I think it's really easy when you get into new age stuff I know I've had this experience of wishing there were like people who could tell me what was wrong with me or tell me how to fix myself or something. But I think if you have that relationship with any of the practices, that is kind of giving up some power and ownership to another entity or another person. So I think it's good at, whatever practices you're using, it's good to feel tuned into this higher power, but it should also feel like you're coming home to find the answers that are already within you. And I think that's a good thing to keep in mind when you are starting to learn about more spiritual practices, that it should bring you closer to yourself and better, you feel like you're getting answers from yourself. Yeah, I just feel like, I don't know, I felt inspired to say that also.
Yeah. Well, and it's a good reminder of how important art is and practicing art in our lives too, because I think for the same reason, this is the time we have. It's in our homes. It's a practice that we can do every day. And as an art center, we're a service provider, and this is kind of going to be what we do now, and how we can support each other in this time while we're isolated and in a distance. Well, thank you, Karen. Thank you, Lindsey, both for your time today. I can't wait to see all this on our website and how we continue to weave in mindfulness and astrology and tarot into our lives here. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Alex.
Thank you.